70 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Friday morning. Got an interesting, thought-provoking little book to talk to you about. It's called A Woman Called God, Words and Pictures by Peter Wilkes, and Peter is on the phone. Peter is the son of an Episcopal minister, it says here. He also is an artist and obviously an author. And the subtitle, let's see, where did I get this from? How the World Would Look If We Perceived the Creator as Female Instead of Male. The proceeds of the book, by the way, go to fight breast cancer, so that it's a win-win. When I was a kid, I remember a teacher teaching us about Native American or Indian religions and cultures, in fact. And I remember the discussion that some of the Indian tribes. Now, I'm going to be a little bit unsure of what I'm saying here because I can't remember if it was like across the board, if it was just in the Northeast where I grew up or wherever these Indian tribes were. But anyway, they were matriarchs. In other words, the women were the head of the society. Like in our world, it's a patriarchal society, or at least it's been that way. It's starting to become what would be both sexes androgynous. Is that so? It's starting to get that way, which is all for the better, I think. If we have men and women both running this world, rather than saying one sex should be running it and the other not. But in addition to the women running things in the matriarchal society, there was also a woman god in their religions, and I remember, and I didn't have the courage to ask, but I remember thinking that as long as they're teaching people to be good to one another, it's not really that different from what we're teaching, you know. Mm-hmm. And maybe Peter Wilkes had some similar thoughts in his path that we call life. Good morning, Peter. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you, and thank you for having me on your show. This is great.
Oh, you're welcome. Where are you right now?
I'm in Baltimore, Maryland.
All right.
Yeah, I just moved back here from North Carolina, actually.
So I remember a discussion once with, now this is not your position necessarily, but there was this woman we had on. She was a feminist, and she referred to God. She referred to God as she, and she was expecting me to be combative with that, and I really wasn't. And then she, but I know that she was expecting me to be combative because she said, I was expecting you to give me a hard time about that.
Yeah.
And I said, no, that's fine. I always call him Father Nature.
Yes, exactly.
I don't say Mother Nature. I say Father Nature, which I really didn't. I was just joking with her, but
Sure.
But it is kind of funny how we assign a gender to God and to and to nature, I guess. I mean, we do that, right?
Well, in fact, that's right. I think for whatever reason, humankind are sort of obsessed with this pronoun for the deity. I think in spite of the title of my book, I'm not sure it's going to be easy for anyone to actually determine the gender of God, and certainly no way to prove it, because that's a virtual impossibility.
Yeah, and the likelihood that in the intelligence that created all of us, which we call God, probably sex doesn't even play a role. I mean,
Sure.
unless we're all little baby gods, and I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The purpose of my book was really to address what I think is kind of a sort of a major issue in the world, and that is this insistence on a male god from, as you mentioned, from the patriarchal religions, really has distorted the relationship between men and women. I mean, you can go back to the story of Adam and Eve just as a starting point, and from there on out, the nature of a patriarchal anything is to subordinate the position of women, and obviously that's become manifest in all kinds of ways in our world, and I also think it has a detrimental effect on men. because men either have this sort of sense of entitlement, which is undeserved, that they're better than women or lesser men, if you will. But it also, on the other hand, it can lead them to a place where they feel they can't live up to this pinnacle of power and perfection, and which drives them nuts. So I think this concept of this male God is very detrimental and should be kind of looked at least, or questioned from time to time, and that's literally what I was trying to do.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Robin.
But what is fascinating about this is that gender always seems to play a role, but not race. And that's what has always been fascinating over the years, because no matter what race a person is, they think God is of their own race. There's no battle there. There is always a battle between female and male.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Kind of true. Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, yeah, the guys who paint pictures of what they expect Jesus, but Jesus was a human being, and he grew up in the Mideast, so he probably looks like somebody from the Middle East.
Right, with olive skin.
Yeah, from Israel,
Yeah.
in Israeli.
Right.
But you know what? You know what I actually think is a bigger issue that you're covering in your book is the notion of spirituality versus religion. I think that's the bigger issue, and whether God is a female or a male. Well, I clearly don't think that anybody who really thinks about it thinks that God really is truly male. I think we use the word he because it's kind of easy for in language. But your point about Adam and Eve is a good point too.
Yeah.
Although, how do you combat that? Your father is a minister. Are you also a minister?
No, I'm not. As a matter of fact, I left the church for 20, 30 years, actually. I tried to be an atheist and couldn't because I really do believe in something bigger than myself, if you will, something that has put this universe together. I think faith is without faith you can't have hope, and I still have hope for the world. So,
do you know,
I had to find another solution.
I was reading this piece yesterday, actually, because of Passover, and it was written by a rabbi. And the rabbi was saying that and forgive me, everybody who's Jewish, I'm going to screw this up, I'm sure, but he was saying that in the Jewish religions, they don't necessarily chastise somebody who says he's an atheist, because there are many cases in the Bible, or what they call the Torah, where they say that you don't have to be doing good to be able to be doing God's work. No, I'm sorry, you don't have to believe in God to be able to do God's work. That's what I want to say. You can be doing God's work and not even believe in a God.
Right. There's this. I think the perception of God is really changing. The new Pope came up with something the other day. Let me see if I can find it. It was something to do with not necessarily believing, not necessarily believing that God is even a man or a woman or anything, but just this entity. But you can do good work without believing in God, and this is the new Pope, and so it's in line with what you were saying.
Do you think that non-denominational churches are hurting or helping religious beliefs? Because you've got Lutherans and Catholics and other religions that are very stoic in what they teach.
Yeah, I think they've got to be helping. I think people are searching. Again, getting back to what Larry was saying earlier about spirituality and religion. Historically, religion has been in the guilt-producing control business, if you will. And they make you feel bad. Excuse me. And they say you're going to go to hell if you don't do this. And I mean, this is the history of organized religion. Spirituality, of course, is something where someone thinks for themselves, which is kind of the last thing that organized religion wants you to do, because they want to tell you how to do it.
In general, I guess I can disagree here. I can disagree because specifically with some churches, not all. And I know what you're saying, that there's this big broad stroke picture that does reflect what you're talking about. But I think in some individual churches that I've attended, Christian churches, that is exactly the opposite. They exactly are teaching you to, follow the Lord and do what you feel the Lord wants you to do. And that does not necessarily mean it has to be the same thing as the guy sitting next to you.
Yeah, I know, and that's a great thing. Sometimes when I talk about religion, I'm speaking of the institution of religion in the patriarchal sense.
I actually understood that, Peter, but I didn't want it to go unsaid about the other element of that, the other side of it. Can I ask you to wait on hold? We have to take a little break, and we'll be right back. Sure. I'm loving this conversation. It's a deep conversation, and a short little interview never is satisfying enough for me with these conversations. But you're a deep thinker, Peter. Let's take a little break. Let me see. I got to put this on the weather. We'll be right back. This is WOCA Ocala.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Beautiful Good Friday with sunshine and a warm afternoon high of 83 to 87. Clear to partly cloudy tonight, though 58 in a few inland spots, 65 on the coast. Tomorrow, partly sunny and warm. There can be a shower with thunderstorm in the afternoon, the high 83 to 87. And for Easter Sunday, breezy and cooler and a bit less humid with clouds and sun and a high of 78 to 82. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Are you wasting hundreds or thousands of dollars on termite retreat fees? If you're not with Turner Pest Control, you probably are. Turner Pest Control offers the industry's only termite and pest control package that never charges retreat fees, ever. You can get started today for only $99. This is a value of $500 or more. This includes treatments, installation of monitoring stations, quarterly pest control, and a lifetime guarantee, all for an unbelievable low $99. Even if you have another pest control provider, visit turnerpest.com to find out how you can avoid paying those high termite retreat fees.
Here's some good policy from your local agent and Auto Owners Insurance. When your insurance policy comes from us, it comes with something extra, a real person. Don't buy from an insurance company with an 800 number and voicemail menu. Auto Owners Insurance operates exclusively through local independent agencies here to help you with all of your insurance needs 24/7. Now that's good policy. Visit George Mangan Insurance in Ocala today. Go to www.manganinsurance.com.
One of the most common questions those nearing retirement are asking, will I outlive my money? Retirement questions like these and many more will be answered every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement with hosts Francois and Julian Cozenet. Francois and Julian will help you put your retirement puzzle together. Catch Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement Saturdays at 9 a.m. on Ocala's News Talk, The Source 96.3 FM and 1370 AM.
Central Florida Eye Institute is the area's leader in laser vision correction. From high-definition refraction surgery and LASIK vision correction to custom cataract, glaucoma, and diabetic treatment, you can count on Dr. Crowley and his effective, friendly staff to provide you with the quality care you deserve. Call 352-237-8400 for an appointment or more information. That number again is 352-237-8400. Looking forward to service your vision needs.
All right, 12 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. This segment of AM Ocala Live is brought to you in part by Dr. Thomas L. Crowley at the Central Florida Eye Institute. The Institute is located just next door to the Paddock Mall on the Sears side. If you go over there to 3133 Southwest 32nd Avenue, that's where you'll find Dr. Crowley and his staff over at Central Florida Eye Institute. The number is 237-8400, 237-8400. The website is centralfloridaeye.com, and there you can have all of your eye care needs taken care of: diabetic eye treatment, LASIK surgery, retinal surgery, optical therapies, and all kinds of different things for your eyes. Stumbling a little bit right there. But anyway, go see Dr. Crowley, 237-8400. Peter Wilkes is on the phone. He's written the book called A Woman Called God. And Peter, up until now, I've been agreeing with you on most things, but I do want to take issue with one thing, I think, and maybe you can defend what I perceived in the book, okay?
Sure,
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I perceive, well, Jesus was a man. Jesus was a man. So if you're a Christian, you group Jesus among the deities. If you don't believe Jesus was a deity, then you don't do that. But clearly you would say he when talking about Jesus.
Sure.
Now, Jesus, from what I've been taught, again, I'm not a theologian, whatever how you pronounce it, but I was taught that he offered unconditional love. Unconditional. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And in the book, you show like a male figure being very conditional. I'll love you as long as you stop doing this bad thing. But the woman figure is, I'll love you even if you keep doing the bad thing, which is kind of how I am. That's me, and I'm a man. So, and my unconditional love is only conditional with whom I love. In other words,
Right.
I'm not going to love all of humanity. I'm not going to love the ISIS guys, but I am going to love my son, no matter what. So,
Yeah.
did I understand it wrong? Did I misunderstand the book?
No, you're right on. I mean, when I'm referring to that God, if you will, the judgmental God, I'm referring to the Old Testament God that is vengeful and the like. I mean that's sort of been shown.
But
Jesus, of course, is. I believe Jesus is a prophet. A fine prophet. I put him in a class, maybe even a class above Gandhi and Martin Teresa and Martin Luther King. But that said, I think Jesus was, in my opinion, like many prophets, sent to earth to correct what our interpretation of the Old Testament God was. To say, no, God is not judgmental. God is not that way. God is open and loving and compassionate and all those things. So I don't think we have a disagreement.
But do you think? But do you think the law is the law? If it's true universally, then it's true universally, and therefore, whether you call it the law of reciprocity or you call it karma, it's not necessarily being judgmental, but it's just a law that if you do something good will come to you. If you do something bad will come to you. I don't know that that's God being judgmental. That's just the way the pendulum swings.
Yeah, well, I mean, that I don't really dispute that, actually. I think that's actually true, and I happen to believe that myself. My issue is how the Old Testament was written and how that has influenced us through the years. A human wrote the Old Testament, or a series of humans, then they wrote the Bible. So there's a guy, and I don't know if you're familiar with this guy or not. It's Bishop John Shelby Spong. He was the retired bishop of Newark and is a progressive Christian. And he said something the other day which I thought was interesting. He said, for the truth of God to be bound in a human system, which religion is a human system. For the truth of God to be bound in a human system is almost inconceivable, and so I think we're limited in what our thoughts are about God, and I think that's of course part of the whole issue.
But if I were God, I would have to have a system that said, I'm going to love you so much that I'm willing to do something that's going to cause you to hate me, or at least temporarily. And now let me explain. I'm not a God, nor am I even close.
Nor do you play one on TV.
No, but I'm a dad. Yeah. My son is now 28, but when he was a little tiny baby, if he kept walking into the street, I kept telling him, no, don't go in the street, don't go in the street. And then I decided, okay, he's not listening to me. You're going to hate me for this, but here's a little swat on the butt. Okay? Now he's crying. His butt is hurting. He's looking at me like he hates me, but I had to do that. I had to do that for him.
Right.
I think sometimes the Old Testament, I know you say it's written by men. I believe it's written by men who were inspired by God. I'm not saying they got it all right. I'm not saying we interpret it right.
Right.
But I do think that in order to teach humanity about God and about a loving God, you have to also show that this loving God loves you so much that he's willing to cause you some pain, and you might hate him for that, but that pain is actually for your own good.
Exactly.
Did that make sense? Did I stumble too much?
I think you did. I mean, I think you did make sense. And no, you didn't stumble. I think the issue that I have is the patriarchal interpretation of that. And the patriarchal religions, in which I include Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, are in the definition of patriarchy is male control, a male-controlled social force that puts women in a second place at best, and in some places in the world as a form of chattel. So I'm not, if you take something that's written in one way, that was written many thousands of years ago, and it's interpreted another way, which is sort of carte blanche, that man is above women. I think that's where we run into the issues.
Fascinating conversation, to say the least. The book is called "A Woman Called God: Words and Pictures" by our guest Peter Wilks. So, in the New Testament, which is also written by men, they include the stories of women who had important roles in the life of Jesus anyway.
Yes.
And in a patriarchal society, that probably wouldn't have happened unless it was true. If it was fiction, they would have never written those women in there. So that's kind of to me, a little piece of evidence that there's some truth there. But the patriarchal society that they lived in was even worse than the one we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Now, what's interesting also is that not many people realize that before the story of Adam and Eve was invented, there was a whole civilization that existed that worshipped a female deity. It was actually, ironically, in the what we now call the Middle East, and they worshipped peace and love, and had wonderful, like you were referring to, the Native American societies that were basically run by women. That existed back then. That was 5,000-10,000 years ago, and they were overrun by Indo-Europeans who worshipped the male god, the god of war, the god of the sword. And so that's kind of how all that came about.
Did you have any confrontations with your dad when you were growing up about the way you were believing and about what he was teaching you through his ministry?
I didn't. When I was a little kid, I just sort of accepted it, and I think my dad struggled with some of this himself, quite frankly. He's been gone for a while now, but I think he was trying to wrap his arms around a lot of this stuff as well, and so while we never had the discussion, I sort of had the feeling that he was part of this struggle. Maybe I'm just continuing it, in my life.
Do you know, we all are fallible, whether we're male or female, in human terms. Whenever we've had female, right now there's this push, have a female president because she'll be much more kinder than the male presidents have been. Historically, that's not been proven necessarily true. There's plenty of female leaders who are
vicious.
Yeah, who have been not so nice. Yep. We have a long way to go. What I love about your book is that it opens up dialogue. It gets people thinking.
And again, it was written not to provide any answers, but just to do that, just to start some discussion.
And you did.
I don't have any answers, really.
And neither do I. One of the commandments says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness," and therefore, I can't tell you I know anything. I can only tell you what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or what I speculate. Too. Yeah. Wow, what a great conversation. All right, we have a minute. How do we get the book?
The book is available on Amazon, both in print form and in ebook format. So if folks would be interested in that, and if they want to join us on our Facebook page, it's the Facebook is awomancalledgod.com. So.
Awomancalledgod.com. Okay, there's a website. Thank you for that. Peter, thank you for being on the air with us. If you're ever in Florida, come and visit us at our studios in Ocala.
I'd love to do it.
We'd love to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you celebrate Easter?
I do.
Well, have a good one. Have a good one.
And you too.
Thank you, Peter. All right, we'll take a little break. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages.